Tonight on the Goblin's Corner.
Megafauna.
That's how we roll. 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 That's how we roll.
Welcome to the Goblin's Corner. My name is Eric.
And I'm Matt.
And tonight,
We're doing Megafauna.
yeah, the biggest of the big.
The huge.
The hugest of the huge is nothing but turtles all the way down.
Exactly.
And elephants.
Yes. Four of them.
4 elephants, specifically. So tonight we're talking about not just big creatures, gigantic creatures. And
Colossal, if you will.
In fact, or even gargantuan, colossal, yeah. Or whatever the hell's bigger than colossal. Now, we're going to work our way up to that as well, and we'll give you some rules on how you can create your own spectacular megafauna. But before we get to that...
Question of the week.
All right, so you've got a different question of the week than typical.
Yes.
So
There's a reason for that.
Okay, I'm listening. What's the reason?
Asking your favorite megafauna
Mm-hmm.
would be colossally foolish if anybody is actually watching the video.
So
Behind me, there's a shrine.
That is the Godzilla shrine that you guys can see. And behind me is a delightful Godzilla poster as well.
Indeed.
Now, those of you playing the home game on your favorite podcast of choice may not be able to see this stuff, but if you've checked our Instagram at any point in time, you would also notice my Dark Lord and Master lurking behind all of the books.
There are no less than 10 Godzillas in this room somewhere.
And to be perfectly honest, there would be way more Godzillas, but we just don't have the room for them right now. So
you have more, I'm aware.
Oh yeah. I can always get more.
Yeah.
All right. So we're not doing megafauna as the question. So what is the question for this week?
We're going off topic. World of Darkness has a lot of werebeasties.
It does.
Especially second edition. Which do you think you'd want to be if it came down to it?
That's a good question. I have a couple of answers, unfortunately.
Or
fortunately, if you like that. So the obvious choice would be Macaulay.
Sure.
Because look behind you, because it's a giant dinosaur, right?
Sure.
But that's too easy. So I would say going something more of the trickster god-esque style.
Sure.
And so I would say I'm particularly fond of Kisune, so the were-foxes.
Mm-hmm.
And then, what are they called? Nuisha, the were-coyotes.
Yeah.
That's about just a gunslinger style Nuisha rolling through the Badlands, Midwest, just pulls in. It's got his farmer jeans on. He shapeshifts and just wrecks havoc. But so those would be the two that I would probably favor. And then, of course, the Korax, the were crows or were ravens.
Yep.
Those are fun, but I would probably lean more towards Nuisha or the Kisune.
Sure.
So what about you? I'm going to use my powers of mental ability and determine that werebear might be one of yours.
Yes. That is
good.
The Goral are on the top of my list.
Excellent.
Followed immediately, oddly enough, by the Nuisha.
Sure, because who doesn't love a mischievous coyote?
Yes. What? And it's about teaching lessons through mischievousness.
Yes. You slipped on that banana peel and broke your arm because you needed to be taught a damn lesson.
Well, yeah. That's what you get for being boastful.
Yeah. So don't be an asshole or you're going to get a prank thrown on you.
Sure.
And it should be noted, by the way, that more people should play second edition White Wolf.
Yes.
Or more people should adapt all of the delightful were critters from second edition White Wolf, which is probably more apt because they had were everything, man. You could be a were hamster probably.
Well, I mean, you could be a were rat. That's pretty close.
I would say that would apply to a subspecies, be were hamster, and have a battle ball that they just roll around in.
Yeah.
Are you a lycanthrope of some strange sort, or perhaps you enjoy lycanthropes? Write to us, info@goblinscorner.com, or you can reach me, Eric, at goblinscorner.com, or
me, Matt, at goblinscorner.com.
And of course, you may find us on all of the things, Twitter, Facebook, and everything else.
Instagram, Pinterest, YouTube.
But hit us up on Twitter if you want to talk to us.
Yeah, basically.
Or Discord. We have a Discord server too.
That's true.
All right. So tonight's episode is Megafauna. So let's start a little bit with the obvious question. What's a megafauna?
Basically, really large creatures.
Yep.
I mean, it's
doesn't have to be special. Could be a turtle. They go all the way down. Or it could be something more exotic, right? So it could be some kind of strange alien-looking animal of some sort. But basically, they're big-ass animals.
Yes.
Or beasts.
Yes.
Sometimes mystical, sometimes not.
Yep. But the question you really have to ask yourself is,
what do they taste like?
How big? How big? Like, at what point in time does it go from being just a large animal, like an elephant, to a megafauna?
I'm glad you asked that question, because megafauna there's lots of different scales. You can have world-ending, gigantic monsters of sorts.
Sure.
Or you could have just a big-ass hamster.
And I think part of that is determined by how big the original creature was, right? An elephant-sized elephant is not a megafauna.
Correct.
It's an elephant. An elephant-sized cockroach.
That's an encounter.
That's a megafauna to me.
That's
right?
a nightmare to me.
Sure.
Me and Mr. Roach do not get along. And that I could just, oh my God, that would
nuke it for morbid. It's the only way to be sure.
Oh my God, they mostly come out at night. Mostly. Ooh, okay. So yeah. So obviously my Dark Lord and Master would be considered a megafauna, Godzilla.
Sure.
But and any of the kaiju sized critters would be megafauna.
Absolutely.
But there's also, classic horror tropes as well. So a particular example is Night of the Lupus, where it was a black and white film that had giant bunnies.
Sure.
Or Them, which was giant ants. Or insert giant monster in replace...
Attack of the 50-foot cheerleader.
Man, the 50s were great because it was just nuclear radiation just made everything gigantic and pissed off.
Yeah.
And the military couldn't do anything. They're like, we've been shooting it with bullets, but nothing works. We got to find that one thing that one scientist happens to know about.
Yep. And it's always, have you noticed that 50-foot was the cutoff, right? It's always Attack of the 50-foot insert creature.
Sure. Yeah, well, they didn't have big buildings back then.
Right.
I'm kidding. I don't know. I don't know. Why is it that was only 50 foot? Maybe it was a good marketing tool. Godzilla was 650 foot.
Yes.
There's a whole big thing about that when he first fought King Kong. Not the new one, but the original one.
Right.
Because King Kong was only about 50 feet tall in the beginning. So what happened? Did he eat his Wheaties one day? I don't know. He got his ass whooped in the last one, though, and I'm proud of that. You didn't watch that, did you?
No.
You should. Well, we're watching that next. When we're done filming this, we're going to watch that episode. I don't care. It's on the streaming services. I've watched it like 6 times already.
I'm shocked.
I know.
In my personal opinion, there should have been only one winner for that fight. End of the day, King Kong does not have atomic breath. I'm just saying.
Fair enough. All right. So, yeah. So there's lots of different things that you can do. Now, fantasy has the distinct ability to throw in mystical creatures as well.
Sure.
And so what we have down here is obviously dragons.
Yeah.
Because dragon is a type of megafauna. If you think it's basically a giant flying lizard.
Yeah, especially the ancient dragons. I mean, they're freaking huge.
Oh, yeah. Or spelljammer dragons.
Yes.
So the celestial
dragons.
Yeah, those things are... Well, the stellar dragons, too. Those things are enormous. They're like half a mile long or something like that.
And then you have the actual megafauna from Spelljammer, which are literally the size of planets. They exist in certain
They have
spheres.
their entire ecosystem and all that stuff. And then the island turtles, which I don't remember the name, but Zeratans, yeah. Yes. So Zeratans are awesome. Those are in D&D.
Yep.
Probably they should be in other realms as well.
Recently, one of our Twitter followers was asking if somebody would make a mountain cat, right? Like a mountain lion in the way that a Zeratan is an island turtle.
A giant cat that's a mountain. I love that.
So I made one for her, I don't know, month and a half, 2 months ago, something like. Sci-fi is full of giant aliens.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So sandworms on Arrakis.
Yeah.
I mean, that thing's bigger than a city block, guy.
I feel that's megafauna.
Yeah. Arthur C. Clarke had the whole gigantic space squid / space sea anemone jellyfish thing.
Right.
And that was on the planet Jupiter, and they were considered megafauna. But then what was it? Starfinder
came
along and decided to make Berthedans, which are basically a little floating. But they've got the giant version as well, someplace as well. Interesting stuff.
Yes.
Let's talk about some other things.
All right. You got the superhero genre.
Okay.
It's always filled with giant things.
Yeah.
I mean, freaking Guardians of the Galaxy, right? Nowhere. It's literally a mining colony in a giant skull.
Big old giant head that they're mining brain matter or whatnot for. Oil.
Yeah.
Mine oil. Yeah, why not? All kinds of crazy stuff. And that was supposed to be like a dead celestial, I think.
Yeah.
Horror has eldritch horror, a gigantic eldritch. I mean, look at Hellboy, the big squid thing. Or, of course, our mighty Lord Cthulhu.
Sure.
Or Cthulhu, as one of our Twitter followers told us the actual pronunciation.
The correct pronunciation.
There's no correct pronunciation for that.
It's an eldritch horror.
You know what? When I'm on some heavy,
I want to pronounce it wrong if it's an eldritch horror.
I need to be on heavy drugs to pronounce it wrong. That's what I know. So there's a lot of different types of thematics you can bring Megafauna into and play with and have fun with. So let's think about, why are we bringing these up first off?
Well, for one thing, they make great set pieces, both for theater of the mind and if you've got the time, inclination to actually build one. Then
visually, you've got an enormous talking point.
Yeah.
You've got potentially a piece of terrain if you're, sitting down at the table playing a game. You've got, they're just neat to look at.
Sure.
And yeah, the theater of the mind aspect is very important, I'd say.
Well, sometimes, depending on how mega your megafauna is, it's not going to be feasible.
Correct. But there's nothing like pulling out a huge size roach in D&D.
Sure.
And watching your player character squirm. Like when you throw the huge size creature, just stick it on the table there, you can see a visceral reaction. And so megafauna of all different types are great because they elicit that reaction.
Yeah.
Another thing I would also say is they make great stories.
Yeah. Just in general, that one time we came across the planet-sized creature, or sometimes it's not even feasible to fight them, right?
Correct.
And so how do you steer them? Whatever it is you need to do, how do you accomplish that? And that's that story.
Yeah, so they can be a couple of different things. A lot of times we think of megafauna as encounters. So when you talk like dire animals or giant ants and stuff like that, but there's a couple other things. They can be plot devices. This is the best example for the use of megafaunas. It's just a straight up plot device. Here it is. It's attacking the town. Go get it, guys. Now that could lead to an encounter, could lead to rallying a nation to help defeat it or steer it away. So the Tarisk is a plot device.
Yeah.
One of the more famous megafauna, if you think about it.
Sure.
Although he's kind of
acid. I'm just saying.
He's not great right now, but that's fine. Environmental hazards. Again, the Tarisk is definitely an environmental hazard. But if you had a plague of giant locusts, that's a hazard.
It is. Not just that, but imagine a megafauna antlion.
Okay.
That's an environmental hazard. That's not just...
That's a pit trap.
A creature. Right. That is literally a large terrain problem.
You got a couple kobolds and a wheelbarrow, man. You've got some bad times. They'll just move that from town to town.
Eventually enough people will die that we can just rob the town blind.
They just stick it in the center of the town. I wonder what this thing in the center of town is. And they all fall in like the mighty, it pops out like the Sarlacc.
Yeah.
Just starts dragging people down. So yeah, environmental hazards are a great use of megafauna. MacGuffins.
Yeah. They can be the store of eternal knowledge that you need to find out a way to actually contact and get information from. Mm-hmm. Because generally speaking, megafauna probably have extended lifetimes.
So they can potentially be intelligent.
Right.
So a Zaratan is intelligent.
Yes.
I think. Isn't it?
I want to say yes.
We're going to look.
Because I believe they've got a language.
We're going to say yes. And
mine is.
There you go. And also, any that you create or, custom build can be intelligent.
Sure.
I'm thinking, for whatever reason, Never Ending Story and the giant turtle from the Never Ending Story.
Sure.
I mean, that's technically a Zaratan right there.
Yeah.
And it was, if I recall, it talked.
It did.
There you go. See? So think about that. That would be great. Another idea, a repercussion or consequence of a player's actions. I love this idea for a Megafauna use. You have screwed up, the villain has got away, and because of that, the volcano bursts forth, and out of it is a gigantic, on fire worm.
Sure.
Like a purple worm.
Yeah, that's problematic.
That's going to be a problem, and it's your damn fault.
But that's not the only kind of repercussion you have to think about.
Do tell.
Let's say I kill Mothra's flying through the city causing problems.
Okay.
And I kill Mothra over the city.
Yep. It has landed on the city.
Yes, that is problematic.
Yep. So
a 600-foot tall creature weighs many kilotons.
Devastation is everywhere.
Yeah, anything that is within falling distance of it ceases to exist.
Yeah. So think about the consequence of actions with a megafauna in your campaign. And, the bigger it is, the bigger the consequence it could be.
Absolutely. It could also be an event.
So that a one-time event or a repeating event, maybe every 100 years, this creature bursts forth from the ground, devours a few hapless citizens, and then gets full, belches up their boots, and goes back to sleep.
Sure. Doesn't like boots.
It doesn't digest them well. It's
Yeah.
fine with the belt buckles.
Right.
But the boots, that's just too much.
It's the laces that are the
It gets
problem.
acid reflux, man.
Yeah.
So think about maybe what kind of event it could be. We've talked about events in campaigns before, but I love celestial events where something awakens. I love some kind of strange, weird, magical or technological combination.
Yeah.
I like, just straight up different times or something, honestly, anything that players can do to screw up and then bring forth this gigantic thing they either have to kill or deal with is great.
Right. I love the concept that something could be so large that it is the celestial event. Imagine if Halley's Comet were actually a stellar dragon. And it's just,
I like
it
that.
just flies its route.
Or an egg.
Yeah.
And then it hatches. Well, what happens if the giant celestial egg that you thought was a comet hatches and it looks towards your planet and it's hungry? Well, now you've got an event.
Yes.
And finally,
if it's large enough, they can be their own location.
Again, a wonderful idea to start a campaign with.
Yeah.
And if you guys want to know more about starting campaigns, look up our episode. It doesn't start in a bar because it doesn't start in a bar.
It could start on the back of a Zaratan out in the middle of the ocean.
It absolutely could. Or on a giant mountain cat.
Yes.
I love that idea as well. So think about how you could incorporate an adventure location into your campaign and make it basically a living, moving animal. Now, I read some sci-fi book, and I can't remember what it was, but it was like a some kind of animal that was big enough. It was one of those alien species animals, but it was a megafauna, and there were different levels, like different tiers of ecosystems.
Yeah.
And people just built cities on one level. On the next level, there were like birds. On another level, there was another civilization that was a completely different species because the thing got up into the stratosphere.
Right.
And that was a cool mental image, obviously, but it was also really cool in terms of how are you going to get around? Like, what kind of species lives on that giant animal?
Well, in the Spelljammer novels, there's actually a megafauna that is so large that every time its foot makes landfall, it destroys magic in its footprint.
So you have like magic dead zones.
Yeah, it literally becomes a magic dead zone.
That's kind of cool.
It just moves really, really slowly, so it's less of an issue.
Sure.
But yeah, there's a lot of strange things that you can toss in.
So think about a lot of those different types of things for your campaign. Now, we would be remiss if we didn't consult size.
Sure. So let's talk about, let's start at the smallest end of the scale.
Okay, and then work our way up to ludicrous speed?
Yes.
Okay, so we're going to call this small size.
Right. In quotation marks.
Small.
Yeah.
So small would be giant versions of existing animals.
Right.
So take a bunny, make it the size of Matt.
Sure.
That probably exists someplace in a lab somewhere.
Have you seen the German bunnies?
Do they drink German beer?
Apparently, they are large bunnies.
How big are these bunnies?
2.5, 3 feet. They are large bunnies. They are bunzillas, and they're freaking adorable. But so
what do they taste like? Because that's the next question I'm going to ask.
Hassenpfeffer.
Yeah. Bunny's delicious. Okay, so that's a good example of that. Now, insects are often great for this. A giant ant could be the size of a, mouse, a computer mouse, or it could be the size of you.
Right.
So,
just as a thought, because a lot of people wouldn't think that an ant that is the size of a mouse is that big of a deal. But if you've ever been bitten by a fire ant,
that would be
the
bad
size
time.
of a fire ant.
That's a lot of formic acid melting your insides at that point.
Yes, but one the size of a mouse is an awful day. You'll lose a foot.
Yeah, clip off your toes, man. Drag them off. Don't talk about Mr. Roach. Good Lord. I mean, we live in, by the way, for those of you who don't know, we live in the South, and we do have giant versions of insects. They're called palmetto bugs, and they're large enough to steal hubcaps and drive off with your car.
Could be worse. We could have the hissing cockroaches.
Oh, and then they
from
just
the Amazon
talk dirty to you while they steal your car. That I don't want anything to do with that, or those giant millipedes that they have, the big giant ones, or the giant centipedes. You know what? I don't want anything in the rainforest messing with me that has giant in the name.
That's where I was about to go. I feel like anything that has the word giant attached is,
if it's an arthropod and
creature,
it's giant, nah, I'm not having it.
If it's a cephalopod,
not having it.
No,
and giant squid, no, I'm not having it. So giant versions of existing animals. That's the easiest thing to do. And from a storyteller aspect, doesn't matter the game. It could be D&D, Shadowrun, some kind of space game like Traveler. It could be Star Wars. I'm looking at the books behind me here. It could be anything. Beefing up an animal to megafauna is super easy.
Yeah.
I mean, rules-wise, it's not hard, and flavor-wise, it's great.
Because people oftentimes are creeped out by insects.
Now, D&D has a very specific type of small, quote-unquote, size megafauna, and that would be
dire creatures.
Yeah. So what are dire creatures?
Dire creatures are, realistically, their concept was take a regular creature, make it prehistoric, basically bump it up a size level, and then give it some bony plating and bigger claws and bigger teeth and call it a day.
So just basically bony plates, pissed off expression, big animal.
Yeah.
But it works.
And in Eberron, I don't know if they did it for 5th edition. I know they did it for
third.
They had horrid creatures, which are basically the step up from dire.
So they're even bigger, meaner, hairier, nastier.
And with acidic bites and claws.
I love everything about that as well. Okay. So that's the small version, right? And you think of like a 12-foot rabbit, that's more of a nuisance. But if it's a 12-foot cockroach, that's an encounter.
Yes. A 12-foot rabbit is a lot of food for the town.
It's just a very comfortable blanket, let me tell you. All right. Medium creatures. First thing I think of, and we're using...
These are medium megafauna.
Medium megafauna, I would consider to be dinosaurs.
Sure.
Mammoths.
Yeah.
Maybe some monster, different types. So, drawing a blank here. Any type of animalistic type monster like a sphinx.
Sure. I mean, you could probably even say that a moose.
A dire moose?
Mooses are what?
A dire. Are there dire dinos? Because we need to have those.
There are not.
Are there dire sharks?
I want to say there is.
I want a dire
shark.
Megalodons would be a delight.
Sure. A dire beholder shark.
Well, yeah. We want to see that, guys. Dragons.
Sure.
And anything that's what I would consider to be
rocks.
A rock is definitely a medium megafauna. Anything that would be considered a potential threat. So this isn't just an encounter. This is a potential TPK.
Yeah.
Unless
if
you
handled
come
poorly.
Yeah, unless you come well armed. This is, I would say,
and even if not handled poorly, some medium megafauna are still just dangerous.
Yeah, a juggernaut is another good example. Which, by the way, if you guys don't know what a juggernaut is, that is basically a tank-sized armadillo from Shadowrun.
Oh, I was actually thinking of the Warforged juggernaut.
Okay.
Which is the tank-sized Warforged with the steamroller wheels.
I'm thinking of the really pissed off
armadillo. Yeah,
armadillo. That's because I just thinking of the book where it's just sitting there.
Yep. I know exactly which.
Always a delight. Okay, so potential threats, potential party kills at this point. Like, this is not just a nuisance. This is definitely that you're going to be on a battle. Yeah. Now, large creatures. I would say that's colossal and up.
Yep.
So medium might be the huge, the gargantuan even.
Right.
But the large megafauna is anything colossal and epic, and I would say even epic.
Yeah.
So you're not looking at like a bunch of first level characters messing around with this thing. This is something like you got to gear up and be 20th level, or you've got to have, you've got to spend a lot of eeps or whatever your system happens to have. Like the Shadowrunners are fully chromed at this point. I've got initiate level in my shaman.
Sure. You got people just like blowing force points out the wazoo.
Yeah, my mage has increased his magic ability to the point where the vampire is looking at him going, "That's cool, but my celerity is all the way up." Like, basically, you're ready. You've loaded for bear. You're ready to hunt that gigantic bear.
Yes.
So colossal creatures is a good. Now, epic monsters again we mentioned. So stuff like Kraken.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's fair. A full-grown Kraken.
Yes, a full-grown, like, pissed off, ready to slay, like, Clash of the Titans Kraken.
They tend to be, large megafauna would be close to the top end of what you would consider combat-oriented options.
So a high CR.
Right. Well, not even just CR. There comes a time when something is so large that you're not doing like planetoid damage unless you're chucking nuclear missiles at it, right? There's a scale.
Yeah. So this is maybe venturing away from combat encounters, although I'd say that you could still technically kill it at this point.
Sure.
But more of event-based, when we mentioned before, and even location, if it's big enough.
Yeah.
Although it'd probably be like small location. Now, would we say Zaratan it would be at this size? Maybe.
Yeah.
It's kind of in between on that one, right? Okay. So what's extra large then?
I would say like Zaratan would be the smallest extra large creature.
Because they're an island.
Right. Because they are a location.
And while you could technically kill a Zaratan.
Sure. Why?
Well, yeah. And honestly, it's not something that player characters. The intent at this point is not combat. The intent is controlling the Zaratan and moving.
Domestication.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's my intent.
I love that you're thinking the same thing that I am. That's great. Yeah. Or
I'm just saying, this is my traveling tiki bar right here.
Tiki Island, bro.
Yeah.
Like you got the whole island, pigs and everything. A goddamn volcano on top. Like it's a whole island.
Yeah.
It's on the back of a tiny little turtle. Tiny. Because there's turtles all the way down. All right, so we've got epic monsters, obviously, that like the Zaratan, but stuff like the sandworms from Arrakis could be considered an extra large megafauna because, I mean, those things are. Have you seen? If you go back and look at like the movie,
yeah,
or the descriptions in the book, they're way bigger than you think.
Yes.
Like they're the size of
Like there's a battalion of people riding One.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're like an apartment complex.
Yeah. I mean, honestly.
Stellar dragons are another good one. So from Spelljammer, once again.
Yep. The full size.
I think they're like 1,500 feet or more.
Yeah.
Ridiculous. Those big, what are the big whales that the undead always made ships out of? Are they space whales?
Yeah. I can't. It starts with a B. It was a takeoff of the Balian whale, but.
Base whales? Who knows?
Yeah.
I don't know. You don't know. Wikipedia will probably.
I mean, that monster manual down there knows. But
yeah, but we're not bringing that up.
Yeah.
No. So again, these are more specifically like encounter locations, potential combat, but most likely this is stuff that you're going to be riding on or encountering other creatures. And I would even go as far to say that maybe some other megafauna would live on these megafauna at this point.
It's possible, certainly.
If you're riding a Zaratan, I mean, obviously, like regular sized creatures could easily live on it.
Yeah.
But you could also have, again,
like
gigantic Mr. Roach chilling.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say. The small megafauna could certainly live on an extra large megafauna.
Mm-hmm. Okay, let's step it up again. What do we got now?
The extra large megafauna.
Okay, so whereas we had like maybe a small island or an apartment complex sized creature.
Now we're talking about something that is fully a city size.
At the minimum.
Right. Up to, living planets.
Mm-hmm.
You got your egos, right?
Asteroids.
Yeah.
Or there's almost like the living planet from, if you ever read John Varley, the Gaia series, it looks like a giant seed, and on the inside is an entire world, and it's one creature that happens to be sort of like godlike intelligence, and it made a whole bunch of other creatures. And then it went crazy.
Like you do.
Spoilers. Anyhow, you're not going to get around to that.
I'm not, but
it's a great book.
Hopefully we're talking to somebody.
Yeah, someone's going to be like, good for that reference. So whole civilizations could exist or live or fight on this creature. Now, can it be killed?
Technically.
I mean, yeah.
If you can figure out a way to steer it, you just fly it into a sun or something.
Yep. But this is an event. This is a location. This is a whole damn setting if you want it to be.
Yep.
I could totally see an entire game where you exist on the back of a giant animal.
Absolutely.
And you don't go anywhere. That's the world, right?
Yeah. I mean, you could literally run an entire campaign on the Spelljammer.
You, in fact, could. And we have, in fact. So, and that's the small one because that's only city-sized.
Right.
Okay. So is there anything larger than extra, extra large in our book?
Yes. Ridiculous and or ludicrous size.
Okay. So tell me what that is.
So what if you had an entire living dimension or a demiplane or a solar system sized entity?
And all three of those have existed in some form on several different games.
Yeah.
Bonus points if you know which ones. We do.
Yeah.
So these are as large as your imagination at this point. It could be an entire universe, could be a dimension, a living dimension. It could be a living solar system of some sort, or something even more absurd and weird. It's just really, really big.
Yeah.
I could see an animal the size of a Dyson sphere, for example. That's huge.
Yep. I mean, there's a demiplane that is made entirely of a colony of worms in the deep astral.
That's kind of cool too. And frightening.
Yeah.
So there's lots of different ways to size up your campaign. What do you want to do with it? Where do you want to put it? And how do you want to use your megafauna in your campaign is really what it comes down to.
Right. We're going to talk a little bit more about megafauna.
So growing your megafauna.
Right.
But we'll be right back.
After these messages. You with the face. Do you like what we have to say?
Help our channel rise from the depths like the mighty Godzilla.
Please like and subscribe and ring the bell and do all of the necessary YouTube.
What he said.
If there are any topics you would like us to cover, goods or services you would like us to review, or if you would like to sponsor an episode, we would love for you to contact us at info@goblinscorner.com. See you there. And we're back.
Welcome back.
All right. So before we went on our break, we were talking about the different types of megafauna, sizes, and ways you can use them in your campaign. So let's build a megafauna, Matt.
All right.
How would we make one?
Well, first, what is the purpose of your megafauna?
All right.
Because
so what are some purposes?
I mean, obviously combat, right? There's your obvious one. Plot device.
Yep.
Hazard.
So like natural hazard, as we mentioned.
Right. An event, or as the base location for what's going on.
Okay. So figuring out that purpose first.
Sure.
And I would even say you don't even have to come up with the animal before you come up with the purpose.
No. In fact, it's probably easier the other way around.
Yeah.
Because if you come up with a bear but decide you're doing a pirate campaign, suboptimal.
You can run with that. Come on. It just trudges through the trenches. It's got a big eye patch. Yar. Hey, be me pirate Megafauna bear. I totally would do that. Yeah, no, so coming up with the purpose for that is definitely an option. So let's go with the pirate campaign.
Okay.
We would want to determine what plot device or hazard or so forth it would be. So let's say location in our example.
So now it's a giant creature
Mm-hmm.
that is operating as a location for a probably aquatic campaign.
You would think with pirates.
Could be airship pirates.
It could, in fact, be. Let's make it airship pirates.
Okay.
So, next up, size is a consideration.
Yes.
How big is this bad boy going to be?
Your options here are, if it's a location, clearly then it's got to be large enough to land an airship on.
Absolutely.
Right? So, is it a land base or an air base?
It's an air base.
Okay. So, let's think about what are aerial creatures that stay aerial for extended amounts of time.
Birds of prey. Vultures. Vultures stay airborne for hours.
Yeah.
Because they just ride the thermals.
Oh, I'm not disagreeing. I want something longer.
Longer than that? Like what?
Something like a albatross.
Okay. So a gigantic, an island-size albatross. So I'm going size here.
Yeah.
Because I want people to dock on the albatross.
Yes. Yeah. And
Okay. So the airship rolls up, docks on the albatross, and it's nothing but fluffy feathers.
And a trading post.
And a trading post.
Yes.
This is wonderful.
It is a pirate trading post.
Of course.
And the only way you know about the pirate trading post is, or the only way to get to the pirate trading post is to know what the albatross's migration pattern is.
Yeah.
Because
could be anywhere.
Yep.
Could even be on the water at some point. So you could have an aquatic campaign with this albatross as well.
Sure. It could just, it's got to take a nap every now and again. It just pops down. And
I'm glad you mentioned that because it is a living creature. When we are world building, you want to consider the ecology. Now, the obvious excuse is magic.
Sure.
And that's fine. Or aliens if you're doing
right.
some kind of sci-fi campaign. But do a little basic diligence and come up, what does it eat? How does it reproduce? Where does it go? What happens when it goes and eats up an entire town? Or in the case of an albatross, what happens when a 50 metric ton poop lands on a city? I mean, that would hit like a comet.
Yeah. Yeah. No, you're not wrong.
If it's flying around and it shits on you.
Maybe it has grown used to avoiding large civilizations because they always attack it.
Maybe it only poops every century and the tsunamis, because it poops in the water,
Sure.
wreck a small coastline.
Could be.
That's some deep literally.
Yes, indeed.
All right. Another thing to consider is, obviously, are they intelligent? Would this albatross be intelligent?
I don't think so.
Nah,
No.
it's an albatross.
Yeah.
Albatross. It just flies around,
This albatross isn't intelligent.
takes a dump wherever it feels like, lands wherever it feels like, eats whatever it feels like. It definitely would eat megalodons.
Sure. Now, my solution to this, as the person who has set up this trading post,
Yes.
my solution to this is a ring of sustenance
Mm-hmm. Oh, on the albatross.
on the albatross.
This is a wonderful idea. I would also say on the other foot, a ring of regeneration. Now you've got free chicken. Because the other question I was going to have is, what does it taste like? Well,
Sure.
it tastes like grilled albatross, obviously.
Sure. I would assume that it's kind of goose-ish.
Yeah.
Probably a
it
very
depends on how
greasy
many
bird.
layers of epidermis you get through to get to the meat. Because, if we're talking an albatross that's an island, that's a big-ass bird.
It is indeed.
So this is a silly example, obviously, but it's a good example for what you can do for your campaign.
Yeah.
Or you don't have to have an albatross, obviously. It could be an alligator, a flying alligator. But whatever it is,
Why not?
consider how to create your megafauna, right? So purpose, size, ecology, and then all of the, if that's true, what else is true questions that go beyond it. It's as simple as that.
Yeah.
Now we add a little bit of flavor.
Are there giant albatrosses in the wild, or was this particular albatross giant sized? Things like that.
Why is it giant sized?
Right. Because Zeratans, we know, actually exist in D&D worlds. They have their own ecology. They're basically like dragon turtles, but larger and less aggressive. So they have, eggs and things that make more Zeratans. Is that true for this specific megafauna that you're putting into the world?
Yep. What does it look like? Does it look like a straight up albatross? Is it purple? Does it have strange growths living on it? What are there giant mites that live on the albatross? Are there entire civilizations that have only lived on the albatross?
Sure.
Descriptions is really what we're going. Does it have its own weather patterns? If an animal's big enough, it would change the weather patterns.
Certainly one of the extra ridiculous large.
The ludicrous size,
Yeah.
certainly, because it would have its own gravity at that point. But even some of the smaller ones, I say smaller, but something rock size or Zeratan size would even have weather patterns or would change.
No, rocks probably not. They're
Probably
only
not
just,
rocks.
I mean, they're big enough to pick up elephants, but Zeratans, they're only, 200 feet across?
Okay, so not too big,
Yeah.
but maybe something larger than that, like the Spelljammer size, like a city size. That might have that would alter weather patterns, I would say.
Yeah.
Now, when we're talking about life cycle, if it's a flying creature, what happens if it dies?
Terrible.
First off, if it's flying high enough, it's going to make a big boom.
Yeah.
And second, that's a big corpse.
Yes, indeed.
That's a necromancer's dream right there.
Fair.
And after 10 million years, that's a lot of oil. Or a huge fossil. Okay, let's go into some story options for our megafauna. And these are just a couple of examples we've come up with. Obviously not extensive, but good enough to give you an idea on how you can create a megafauna of your choice.
Right.
And some fun options to play with.
The first one is the classic, right? Regardless of genre, setting, what have you, the adventure to hunt down a giant beast.
Oh, yeah. This beast is attacking the city. You must go down and kill it. I can't remember how many games where you have to kill giant rats, for example.
Right.
I mean, that's like a level 1 encounter in every video game. Go kill some giant rats or cockroaches. Fallout's got the big rad roaches you got to kill.
The thing is it doesn't just have to be protection, right? Maybe if you're on a colony, you're sent out to kill this thing for research. Or if you're in a frontier town, you're there to subdue it, to see if they're able to, whatever this giant thing is able to be domesticated.
these giant roaches make great farm animals. You just set them, you give them a big sugar cube, and they just plow the field for you.
I mean, if you think about insects, their strength versus their size, they would actually make great creatures of labor.
Sure. I'm down with that.
And then they eat the compost pile.
There you go.
Because they're roaches.
Yeah.
And you're set.
Giant flying insect would be great too. Get around. Yeehaw. Imagine this giant fly that you're just flying around on.
It's a horsefly.
It literally is a horsefly. I see what you did there. Very good. All right. Let's come up with another different story option. I like this one. Of course, another trope, the living planet. I mean, Marvel Universe has Ego, the living planet.
Right.
There's lots of other, not egos, but there's lots of other living planets in sci-fi and fantasy as well. Now, I would say this is good for a sci-fi game, obviously.
Sure.
You could apply it to sci-fi fantasy or some kind of space opera style game, but you could set it up for really anything. A living planet would be great horror based.
Sure. Like if that's the payoff, if the giant elder evil is literally the planet you're living on
and waking it up
yes.
is the climactic event.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would suck.
If your cosmic horror game, the climax is, oh, BT dubs, the planet's alive.
Damn, you can't nuke it for more, but let me tell you that.
Right?
I mean, you could. You just have to have a lot of nukes.
Well, that, and where are you going to stand when the nukes fall?
Yeah, that's a good point.
Because this is your planet that you're on.
Yeah, got to find a new planet now. You're messed up now. Okay, can you set up a symbiotic relationship with a living planet?
Sure. And if you can,
what's it like?
What does it want from you, and what do you have to gain from it?
Mm-hmm.
How do you communicate with something that's planet-sized?
I mean, you might have to speak seismic.
Morse code using dynamite?
Yeah.
I mean, maybe.
Bang a bunch of rocks together or smash a comet into it to get its attention. Who knows? Or you could do something even more crazy.
Right.
There's lots of different choices. Okay, so let's talk about, since we're talking about living planets and size, let's move into the next trope here. Just megafauna as locations.
Sure. One of the ones we briefly mentioned was the Zaratan as a base of operation.
Mm-hmm.
That would be, let's face it, man, that's the dream. That's just a tropical island.
I'm looking at an Acquisitions Incorporated campaign where their guild hall is on a Zaratan. And it just moves through the Sword Coast.
Sure.
That would be an awesome base. And then you just upgrade the Zaratan so that it flies. And then it becomes a flying Koopa. A giant shark as a Kutoan city is a wonderful idea. This big-ass shark. They've got buildings attached to it and stuff. It just swims.
Yep.
Engulfs everything. Maybe it's a religious thing. So when the elders get ready to die or they have sacrifices, they just toss it in its mouth.
And it barely notices because it's
cavernous.
Yeah.
It's just gigantic. There's all kinds of monsters cleaning its teeth. Think of giant remoras as well. Ooh. Or barnacles. The barnacles could be some kind of Cthulhu-esque horror.
Sure.
I'm down with all that, man.
Imagine a giant earth elemental tainted yak.
Okay. So a rocky yak.
As a city in a mountain range. Like the Himalayas, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like it's literally there's a city or a village on top of this yak. Just dope, 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 dope. And it just goes to wherever the grass is or wherever there's some tasty rocks to munch on.
And it just plows down.
Yeah, and the villagers are just along for the ride.
Just chomp, chomp, chomp. It's just literally plowing a field.
Yeah, it's just grazing its way through.
Yeah, going through
mountains.
stone and whatever else it happens to want to eat.
Yeah, that's how valleys are created.
That would be a really interesting story arc. Another good story arc that we talked about was the flying bird. So a
Right.
rock could be a flying citadel or fortress.
If it were big enough, yeah.
If it were big enough, yeah. We also have a megafauna has emerged as a result of some kind of instance, and the players have to deal with it. Now, this is a very easy, again, event or a consequence of one of their actions.
Yes. It's a consequence.
It's a consequence. You know which one we're leaning towards here.
Yeah, it's 100%.
Yeah, absolutely. Because that's something that is a fun instance. You're done with the dungeon. There's a big glowy gem. They just have to with the gem. And now the gigantic shrew pops forth from...
Oh, that's awful.
Yeah, right? This giant shrew just pops forth from the mountain and starts wrecking things.
That's the natural prey of the mountain cat.
Yes. And now the mountain cat has woken up and is hunting the giant shrew.
Nice. Yeah.
The giant shrew is big enough that they're voracious eaters, shrews.
Yes.
So they're eating you. So
They're eating
everything.
everything.
Yeah, they're eating the tavern. And while they're eating the tavern, the mountain cat, which is as big as a mountain,
Yes, it is literally a mountain.
is bearing down on the giant shrew.
Which happens to be also bearing down on the city, because that's where the tavern that the shrew is eating is.
And they've awoken the continental dog. And now you're just in a bad place all around. And you don't even want to talk about what's living underneath the continental dog. Those fleas, my friends.
Yeah, the fleas on a
Fierce.
continental dog, that's...
Fierce. So there you go. Consequence of action. What else do we have before I go completely insane?
Too late. So a megafauna has managed to contact your group to rid it of an infestation of normal creatures.
The continental dog wakes up and is like, "You must clear me of mega fleas."
Sure. What's he got to offer? A lack of earthquakes and other natural disasters.
Sure. But it could even be something smaller in nature. So you could have maybe a very large, I don't know, bear, giant bear, right? Maybe small size, the size of like a house or something, or a brontosaur that's intelligent. Could happen. And I've got these nasty termites, or I don't think they'd have termites, but they'd have some kind of, infestation of something. I don't know. Nobody knows what brontosaurs got.
Yeah.
Ticks.
Dire scabies.
Dire scabies. They could have that, or what is it?
Ticks.
Mites.
Yeah,
Those little red mites, spider mites. Yeah. It could be anything. And you've got to slay them with your sword or trusty arrow. Toss the paladin at them. The cleric could try to turn them. The druid would, roll around with them.
Or, you just give it a bath.
You could, in fact, do that. Because you've got a water genasi sorcerer. And they know how to do that.
And a keg of soap.
Keg of soap. There you go.
Problem solved.
Cantrip clean, guys. All right. A scientist has hired you to try to discover the life cycle of one of the enormous creatures that you could potentially literally be living on.
Yeah. How does it happen? Where did they come from? Do they have eggs? I
found this strange immature one that only is X big, right? It's only the size of a house. This other one's the size of a city.
This albatross is only the size of an albatross. What is this? What is this nonsense?
It's a pygmy megafauna. It's such a tiny megafauna. It's only the size of a house. What's wrong with this thing? Is it a mutant?
It's a miniaturized giant space hamster.
That's exactly right. These are great campaign starters, side quests, and eventually even story arcs. Like just straight up, it moves on to something else.
Yeah. An evil genius has created a growth ray.
Oh, this is definitely mutants and masterminds all over it.
Yeah, it's using everyday creatures in a major metropolis. 15-foot roaches and rats would be really, really dangerous.
Man, Pizza Rat would be on a whole nother level.
Can you imagine someone with that mindset in a metropolis?
Yes, I can.
Chaos. Every person who's got an annoying, aggressive, yippy dog, just zzz, and now it's a dire Chihuahua or a dire Pomeranian or what have you.
That Yorkie Terrier just ate my car.
Yeah.
That would be awesome. And what a great evil villain thing to do. So we've got a survival of the fittest. One megafauna is eating another, and the exchange is in slow motion. In this scenario, we're thinking, continental dog size here.
Right.
One is eating the other, and it may not happen in real time, or it is happening in real time, but it's
continental speed.
Yeah.
Right.
So now you've got, in addition to one animal dying, what's the repercussion of megafauna dying in slow motion? How long do you have before it's completely eaten or dead? But you also have two civilizations now that are interacting, because maybe one lives on the continental dog, the other one lives on the continental cat.
Sure. Continental rabbit.
Yeah. So you have a great interchange between two civilizations. Now, it could happen faster. It doesn't have to happen on a minusculely slow speed. It could happen something in terms of weeks instead. So
Right.
maybe it's eating it in a little bit fast. So in terms of weeks, the animal may be dead. They've got weeks to get off this continent versus a millennia.
Right. Or is it, what if it's, okay, so the continental rabbit's dead. Okay. So what?
Maybe nothing happens.
Right.
Or maybe it starts to rot.
Or maybe the dog literally continues to devour it, and now one civilization is forced to move onto the continental dog because the continental rabbit is disappearing.
Yeah. And what does that look like from ground level, too?
Right. Interesting questions.
Indeed. What else we got?
Take Discworld for an example.
Okay.
One of the 4 elephants that's holding up the world has a cold.
That's a shaky situation right there.
Man, when one of the creatures holding up the planet has the sneezies, it's time to get into some serious action.
Absolutely. A massive planet where all of the creatures are normal, except they're 10 times the size of normal creatures.
Yeah.
That's Avatar. The movie?
Yeah. Absolutely.
I mean, that and tentacle sex. But that's because they had like hair tentacles.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. What were you thinking? No, we're not
I was
talking.
just
We're not talking
wondering
about hentai here. We're talking about,
Okay.
something less. Look, they were banging with their hair. Okay, that's all I'm saying. A solar system which is just really a giant petting zoo, and all of the creatures live on an animal-sized world, or more specifically, a world-sized animal.
Right. I knew what you meant.
Yeah, but they didn't.
Fair.
So those are just a couple of examples that you can use for your story, or story arc,
Yeah.
or campaign.
Or setting.
Indeed.
Yeah.
Or in, and was mentioned, event or location. Now, let's give our audience playing the home game a little bit of monster love. What do we got? We've got some specific megafauna that we've kind of chucked into this episode for your amusement.
Right. You actually touched on one just a moment ago.
Which one?
The giant animated undead citadel.
Yes. Could be anything. Could be a giant scorpion.
Yep. Could anything that is big enough is now animated, and we, in the rib cage or on the back, we build a citadel on it.
Yep. We talked about Zaratans a lot in this episode, but we could also talk about stuff like a giant centipede that's rolling along a plain, and it feasts off of wildfire areas, or it carries a savanna across its back, a porcupine that's a forest.
Yeah.
That would be awesome. It's a big-ass porcupine just rolling along. Doop, doop, doop.
The trees are its spines.
An armadillo that's a salt flat.
Sure. I don't see why not.
Could be anything, really.
A continent-sized megacat with horse-sized fleas and a toxic dander-ridden atmosphere.
So the atmosphere itself is
Just like giant flakes of dander just,
oh my god, that's a nightmare. Did you see it floating through the atmosphere, just kind of
yeah. I hope Travis
Closing-
Willingham never listens to this particular episode.
closing sinuses off
Yeah.
on people who are allergic to cats. Yeah, that's one gigantic allergen. A world with a mega phoenix as the sun.
Yes.
That's cool.
That was the
So
bird cage. That was,
Spelljammer.
yep. Well,
Of course it was.
it's it's a planet that I made for Spelljammer.
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
World egg.
Mm-hmm. Hatches. What happens?
Yeah.
Could be another sun.
Could be.
And then you're really screwed.
Yeah, your campaign's over. Ta-da!
Done. Maybe cracking the egg is the campaign.
Could be.
A titanic quadruped so tall its head reaches space. I talked about this somewhat, but each body part might have an entire ecosystem or be an entire continent. It could be the world itself.
Sure.
I would love to see this played out in a campaign someday, because characters could then journey to the different parts of the animal.
Yeah.
Could be a giraffe, could be an elephant, who cares? It's elephants all the way down, just like it's turtles all the way down.
Sure.
It's elephants and turtles.
Turtlefins.
Turtlefins. That's right up there with the beholder sharks. Turtlefins.
Yes.
Okay.
I mean, if you think about it, their legs are very similar.
Mm-hmm.
A planner kraken, right? An immense being that dips its tentacles into different realms for food.
Or eats planets.
Sure. If it's big enough and hungry enough, just.
So if you're on a particular tentacle, you could actually travel the planes. That would be cool.
It would be cool.
Couch slugs. That's what I'm thinking of. Another just literally a slug that's the size of a couch. Potentially useful as a couch.
Yeah, as long as you've got waterproof pants on.
Well, kill and dry it properly. It would be a delightful couch.
Don't they kind of deflate when they dry out?
Let's not get into the specifics here, Matt.
Okay. Sorry. My bad.
We also have, and this is my favorite. Oh, actually, I'll let you describe this one. This is a delight.
Yeah, this
came from my brain.
Yes, it did. Dire sugar gliders.
They're just so damn big and cute.
They are.
And they'll carry you off and nibble your head.
Well, the thing is I don't know if you know about sugar gliders, but they are community-based. And they will recognize humans as a portion of that community.
It's a swarm of cute,
if
gigantic.
you can make friends of them.
That would be awesome.
So basically, what you could have is like on
a flight of sugar gliders that warriors would
yes
would be carried into battle on.
Yes,
I want this in a campaign so bad. This would be the best thing in the world. Can you imagine? You've got just a holy order of knights, and they're decked up in their armor, and they're getting ready to go to war against the big bad, and they hop on their cute little sugar gliders and fly into battle. It would be awesome. And of course, we have the alpha toad.
Sure.
Belches random elements, eats everything that's smaller than it.
And where's it located?
Limbo.
Of course.
It's the slod dance around it the whole time in party hats. And finally,
the world shrew.
The world shrew.
So is this a world?
That's a shrew.
That runs around the solar system eating other worlds?
Yes. It's like the shrew version of Galactus.
You don't even realize that your world is the bad guy, right? Like if you're a citizen of the world shrew, you don't realize that it's just like, man, Mars looks delicious today.
Where'd that planet go? I don't know.
And why does the sun look so far away?
What kind of civilization lives on a world shrew? Who knows? It's up to you to find out. So there you have it. Just a couple of ideas that we've come up with, some rules, and various thematic elements to add Megafauna to your campaign. Did you like what you saw and heard? Write to us. info@goblinscorner.com, or you can reach me, Eric@goblinscorner.com, or
me, Matt at goblinscorner.com.
And of course, you may find us on all the things.
So many things.
We're on all the things. And what are some of those things that we are on?
Twitter. We're on Facebook. We're on Pinterest. We're now on YouTube.
That's correct. And all of those is Goblins Corner, so it's Twitch.
Right.
And of course, Instagram, the Goblins Corner.
Yeah.
We had to add the.
Right.
Because someone else took Goblins Corner.
Fiends.
It's okay. They're probably great people. Do you like our show?
I mean, they have great minds.
Got a great name. If you like our show, subscribe to the podcast on your favorite player of choice, YouTube or Twitch. And of course, if you'd like to give us a rating, 5 stars, ring that bell, please do, because it helps the metrics the almighty algorithm and gets our show to everybody else.
Yes.
All the places.
So many places.
All right, I'm done with this episode. Once again, my name is Eric.
And I'm Matt.
We'll see you next time.
Good night, folks.
The Goblin's Corner has been written and produced by Eric Holden.
And Matt Staples.
D20 did our music.
And this is, in fact, a subterranean production.
Your voice is so low.